I want to welcome all of you in on this Wednesday to Coronavirus Inside the Arizona Numbers. I'm here at the ABC 15 studios today. Everybody always likes to take a peek. Empty studios behind me here. A little lonely. Less than about 10 people in the building, and this is a huge building, so it takes a lot of getting used to at most points. Garrett joins me as he always does, and we're going to dive into the Arizona-based data that's coming out of our state here specifically. But let us know where you're watching from. A lot of this data can be applied to other states and other cities, so that we can help you find the best information that's out there, so you can make the best choices for your family and your life. You know their health and their tendencies best. We're just here to help guide you through the numbers that are here behind it. Garrett, let's start where we always do on that summary page. And I know we're probably going to get a lot of questions about the high number of deaths today. And as we do head into this, I want to note one marker that we just passed, and that is global cases have passed 20 million. So we've passed 20 million cases worldwide, 1/4 of those, 5 million, right here in the US. So we have a very large number of cases here. Let's get right into our summary page in Arizona and how things look today. And like I said, specifically those deaths as well.
Absolutely. So we are just under 190,000 cases in total. We only added 706 cases today. The total number of deaths, 4347. We did add 148 deaths. That is the second highest number of reported deaths that we have had since the pandemic began. Just as a note of clarity, of course, when we see those deaths, these don't occur in the last 24 hours. They're typically filled in from anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. And so just make sure you understand that. And then the number of tests, 1.3, almost 1.3 million of tests so far, 7,000 PCR tests today, and 900 serology tests. The cumulative percent positives did not change from the last couple of days. From yesterday. They're still the same as they were.
And how do things look in Maricopa County? How many of those are reflected? We're talking to folks from Maricopa County. Let us know what county you're watching from, and we can peek at those numbers as well. But the bulk of these numbers are always coming from our most populous county, and that's Maricopa.
Yes, more than 50% of the cases reported today did come from Maricopa, as well as the majority of the deaths, 111 out of 148 did come from Maricopa County so far. And you can see the percent positive for Maricopa County is slightly higher than the state as a whole. It's at 15.2 rather than 13.9. And about 4,000 of the 6,000 or almost 7,000 tests came from Maricopa County.
Can you clear up some of the conversation that you're maybe hearing online about where these deaths come from and whether people feel like they can trust them because they come from a date farther back? I saw some of your interactions on Twitter today because people were sort of discounting these deaths. These are highly degreed people who are looking into these cases and making sure that these numbers are true.
Yes, correct. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go to one more screen that I'm going to show you. This is the Epi Curve. So the Epi Curve, for anyone who's not familiar with the term, this is basically the actual date that the certificate is affirmed on. So this is the actual date of death. And anything in light blue was added from yesterday's report. And you can see that of that 148 deaths, the majority of them have come from the last 12 to 14 days, but there were deaths added to the curve all the way back to about the middle of July. This is what's called certificate matching when they do this. It is a process in which they basically ping the entire hospital system, medical examiners, and everywhere else to pick up anything that they may have missed on the investigative process. Now, that does not mean that this is a different class of death or these were just added. There are times, obviously death certificates do go through multiple rungs of review. And so there might be a situation in which COVID-19 is determined to be an underlying cause of death at some point during the review process. But to make it very clear, we've talked to doctors about this. We've looked into sort of the federal laws around this, and there simply are not situations in which doctors are assigning a code of COVID-19 as a death if the person did not have COVID-19 or was just simply tested positive. If somebody, for example, dies in a car accident, or if they die of something else, they would not mark it COVID-19 unless the attendant physician believed that COVID-19 was a cause of death. The attendant physician also does not have a financial incentive to upcode a cause of death. That's just not the way it works as far as the treatment is concerned. As we've talked about, EPIs are looking at this, virologists are looking at this, other medical doctors are looking at this, and if you upcode, for financial reasons, you are at risk of losing your license. And I can't imagine a lot of doctors are going to risk their license that they went to school for 10, 15 years in order to upcode for COVID-19. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And Mary Kay is asking, clarifying, cases are backfilled to their actual date. Yes, so they're put on the curve at the date of death, not the date that it's finally reported to us.
Yeah, this is the date of death on certificates. The other curves are date of collection for the sample, but this is the date that the certificate has on it. And that's why every once in a while you do see some being pulled back because there's verification. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's a little light blue mark right here in late June in which a death was removed from the curve. That does happen, and usually that doesn't mean that the death has been, oops, this was a mistake. Oftentimes it's because they're verifying something on the certificate, and if there is something wrong with the certificate, it will be pulled off, but oftentimes it's simply just pulling it off to re-verify information, and then it would be put back on.
Yeah. Joe asks a question. How many times do you test a COVID-19 patient if they're in the hospital? Is that counted as a positive test every time you test them? Joe, really good question. It is not. Once you are a positive COVID case, you are counted that one time.
Yes.
To deduplicate that, it would be like your medical record kept on your name and date of birth. So, Joe, really good question, and we're happy to clear.
Yeah, Joe, think about it as a medical billing situation. They don't want to have multiple bills out for one person. They're going to try to consolidate all medical procedures into one person's record. And you have to think of all the tests, case, everything, basically think of as medical billing. So once you're added as a case in the medical billing record, no matter how many tests you take, they're all going under the same record.
All right. Some of the other numbers that we've been tracking, we looked at the summary page, and I know there was some mixed information, mixed numbers that came from the hospital numbers today, and some higher counts in the ICU. It doesn't seem like we're seeing necessarily a trend here, but we are going to kind of watch these higher numbers in the ICU.
Yeah, let's look at the COVID-19 specific metrics on the ACTHS dashboard. So we'll come down here and we'll see, we'll go through all of them right now. The inpatient, which is the general acute care beds, you can see that the trend has continued on a very consistent downward trend since we hit our peaks around July 13th. Today we have less than 1,500 patients that are determined to be COVID-19 in acute care beds. ICU, we'll go to ventilators first. ICU, that same downward trend has continued. You can see, I said ventilators, my apologies. 346, today was 328. So this is the amount of ventilators they determine are for COVID-19 patients. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is the first time it's occurred for quite some time. The ICU beds did increase. It was a very small increase, only 9 beds, but it has increased for 2 days in a row. We have not seen a 2-day increase of the ICU beds since right here on July 12th to July 13th. So those are the only times we've seen them. Definitely not a trend at this point. Everything else is still pointing downward, but it may be a situation in which we're starting to see, we might be seeing a floor in ICU for a while, as some patients in the ICU are staying for longer periods of time.
So we'll keep an eye on these ICU numbers for the next couple of days, and really any of the numbers that we're seeing pop up. But when we look at the demographics of this, based on ages, when we're looking at different things based on medical factors that come into this as well, I know that our under 20 group has had so much attention because parents are considering or already sending their kids back to school. School districts are talking about whether kids can show up for in-person classes. So how does that less than age 20 group, so 0 to 20, look in Arizona right now?
Right now, there's about 23,000 people under 20 that have been diagnosed throughout the entirety of the pandemic for COVID-19. That's about 12% of the cases. They have in recent days been growing very slightly. It's almost statistically insignificant. It's only 1/10 of a point here and there, but they are growing at a slightly faster rate than some of the other age groups at the time. The only other period in which that was occurring was during the lockdown. In that time, it was when that group was growing as well. What we're seeing right now is, and also just to make a point on that, they are per capita the lowest group that is still impacted by the virus by a pretty good margin.
So let's see. Is there a way to determine how many 65 plus are surviving COVID-19? They only post the deaths. So we can see the numbers of, I mean, obviously this would take us to two different areas, whether you have it and survive it or whether you never, you were able to avoid it entirely. So some different conversations there, but let's get to that 65 and older group. I've seen a couple questions about it. It's sectioned off in the bottom of your page. And I know it doesn't, it sort of mirrors the same number of people in that 20 and younger age group as well. It was right in the 20,000 the last time I checked it.
Yes. What I could tell you, and I'm just sort of doing napkin math as I'm looking at this right here, it appears that about, let's see, there's about 100, am I on, no, I'm on testing. Let me go to cases. There appears to be about 2,000 or so, anywhere from about 2,000 to 5,000 people over the age of 65 that possibly could be considered an active case in Arizona right now. The rest of them, if they are not on the death curve at this point, then those are people that, while we don't know what the recovery number is, what we can tell is that they are considered an inactive case as far as transmitting the virus. Obviously, medically, there's a lot of repercussions to this disease, especially if you have a moderate to severe version of it, and it takes the elderly population it takes them longer to recover from this disease, and there can be some implications that are long lasting. So it's definitely something to look at. I would say, like I said, about maybe to anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 of those 21,000 are active at this point.
All right, so this is a really great chart to check out if you want to know a little bit more about the demographics, and this is on the Arizona Department of Health's website. Garrett, I'm forgetting what the category is named up above. Is it actually called demographics on there? I know it's different.
It's called demographics. This is where you can get it, and it's also mirrored in deaths. So this is where you can sort of do the simple calculation of the case fatality rate of the 65 and older. And then also, this also exists in hospitalizations and laboratory testing. So you can find the demographics in all sort of four of those areas.
So a lot of people are posting about fear right now. And let's just talk about that for a moment. We are here to help dispel the fear. We're here to try to take the fear away from you by empowering you with numbers. So when you're posting about fear, we're trying to help you through that. If you're feeling scared, if you're feeling overwhelmed in this, you can feel better by understanding the numbers better. And that's why we join you here each afternoon, to help you better understand the numbers so that you can feel fearless and make educated decisions on what to do for your life and your family, your child's health, maybe a parent's health. You know their situation best. We're simply here to help you through the data. So if there's a question about data that you're interested in, we can help you find that number in Arizona. Just post it in the questions and we'll get to those as we move through some of the other information that's coming out of Arizona today. Garrett, what other things kind of caught your eye when today's numbers came out? Yeah, Anastasia writes, knowledge is power. Absolutely. That is exactly why we do this, to help you better understand so that you know your family, so that you can make appropriate choices based on the numbers, how high they get, how low they dip. We're here to walk you through it all. What other things? Oh, Carrie writes, you've helped me. Thank you, Carrie. That's exactly why we do this. So we appreciate that. Garrett, what other things kind of caught your eye when you were looking through these numbers this morning?
I would say that one of the more interesting things going on right now is that we are seeing a falling percent positive for diagnostic tests. It does continue to fall. And I'm talking about the actual date of occurrence rather than those reported numbers. We seem to be right now getting into the 6 to 7% on the daily charts as far as that percent positive. So that's very good news. We're also having slightly climbing serology test rates. We seem to be in the 12% right now in that area. So that's sort of what the case makeup right now. When you're seeing these cases come in, it's anywhere around 12% of that case number could be antibody tests, and the remainder could be serology tests. So that's one of the reasons why you see in Johns Hopkins University or COVID tracking we have a slightly higher percent positive, because they're also they're putting in those serology cases. But other than that, we seem, as far as the diagnostic, the active infections, they still are falling at a pretty decent rate at this point.
So Leslie asks, what are the numbers for Maricopa County for the recommended school benchmarks? So this is going to be a really important conversation, especially for us on Thursdays, Leslie, because that's when the state is sort of taking a look at the past couple of weeks and assessing where we are in those benchmarks, and then making the best decisions for our schools to reopen safely. So tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day as we look at where we are in these benchmarks. But Garrett, with us looking at this every day and studying these numbers, we sort of have an early preview of how things are going to look, because we're looking at it each day.
Yes. So right now I've got the dashboard shared up for the schools, and I've put on, I'll put on Maricopa County for this particular instance. You can see that we're still considered substantial spread in Maricopa County, because while we have 1 week of COVID-like illness in the moderate category, we still have 2 weeks starting from July 19th going back that are still in the substantial. What we need is for both of these numbers to be under this 10% mark in order to be considered moderate spread. And also with this cases per 100,000, these all have to go down into this yellow category for it to change in Maricopa County. But what I can tell you, and this is how you sort of can do the math on your own here to see what's going on, is if you go to the PCR dashboard, and I'll take you there really quick, going back to the other, I've already got Maricopa County highlighted, and you can see here's July 19th. With the 13%. So tomorrow, when they recalculate this dashboard, they're going to be posting an 11%. That is what's going to happen tomorrow when they post this. That's still over the 10% threshold, which means we still won't have a yellow in that particular category. But right now, for Maricopa County, what's encouraging is for this week right here, August 2nd. As of right now, it does appear that this will be the first week of the threshold. So that will show up in 2 weeks, and then after that, if things continue to fall at that point, that's August 27th is when Maricopa will have basically the first week, and then on September 3rd, it appears in that category they will have a lower. They'll be in the moderate category for PCR for percent positive at that point.
And now this has become the all important tracking as well for bars and restaurants, yes, and water parks and gyms. So each of those have their own metrics that we can walk through. I want to get to one other question while this page stays up. Marlena asks, why are people who have never tested getting letters in the mail saying they tested positive, and then they're following up with contact tracing? I know a handful of people this has happened to in Arizona, not related to one another. Not sure I understand why the numbers are being inflated. So Marlena, if this is happening to those specific people, they should reach out to our television station, because if they're not getting tested and they're getting a letter in the mail, that's a scam. That's somebody trying to scam them. First of all, if you're getting a letter that you tested positive, they're calling you if you tested positive, because they need you to know right away so you're not infecting other people. They're not waiting for the postal service to then send out a letter that you get a week later that you could have infected other people. So that's definitely a scam. And if you want to encourage your friends to reach out to us here or any news station, because that's a dangerous thing if they're fishing for that information from your friends.
And on top of that, again, there's obviously if it was an actual if it was an actual test that was positive, it's likely that there would be billing involved in that. So they would also get a bill from the medical provider.
Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons why that wouldn't work out, or they'd have a portal to sign into. When I got my test results, I had to log into a portal, and I got a text message specifically telling me my information was there in the portal. So mail, while they might get something in the mail, that is separate from a positive test result. That would come right away from your provider or where you got the test taken. Let's see. Julie is asking, another day of low testing. How many results did we get in today? Julie, you can always find this on the dashboard summary page of the Arizona Department of Health site. It reports how many new cases are updated to us. 7,000, is that how many we got in today?
7,800. That's with both antibody and diagnostic tests. It was 7,000 diagnostic tests.
All right. And a few more questions have come in. Robin's asking, how many people died today? Robin, we don't know that number this quick. So we wouldn't know the actual number of people who've passed away on this particular day. What we can tell you is we've had one of the highest numbers of deaths reported. But those deaths can come anytime throughout the pandemic. So most of the deaths that were reported today, Garrett, were within the last 3 weeks or so.
About 3 weeks, and that's about how long it takes for the number to stabilize. And we know with some sort of clarity that that number is going to remain around what the number is. So, like today, for example, when you look at the curve for deaths, and I'll just use the ACDHS data for this, you can see they only have 2 deaths reported right now for August 11th. However, because of the way this works, this data right here, there's still a high likelihood that a lot of this data is going to be filled in over time. And so August 11th, in about 2 to 3 weeks, could end up looking more like 35 to 42 deaths, somewhere around there. It does appear we're off our peak at this point, July 17th of 93 deaths. I don't see a date at this point going to that level, but we're still sort of in that range of the 44 to 34 range of daily deaths that we should expect after about 3 weeks of settling.
Debbie asks, we did, or states rather, we did have a low number of daily reported deaths for the past few days, though. Yeah, Debbie, you're right. We did see some pretty low numbers over both Sunday and Monday were low, weren't they, Garrett?
Yeah, this is certificate matching.
Yeah,
and that's what we kind of talked about. I'll stop this really quick, and I'll see if I can pull that up. And I'll show you sort of what the report looks like on a daily basis. This is the AZDHS numbers, not the Epi Curve, if you will. This is actually just reported out. And we'll show what Debbie's talking about, how we've had some very low reports lately in deaths. Here it is right here. Let me share it in. Right there, okay. And you can see right here, again, the death curve, but this time it's the daily reported numbers. And you can see, based off of sort of the pattern of reporting that occurred about 2 weeks ago, you can see the last couple weeks that pattern disappeared. And so sadly, because of just the level of ICU and ventilator numbers we had, we were sort of expecting at one point we were going to get a high death number to sort of fill in the data that was not reported in the last couple days. So it was dropping. It still is going to continue dropping, but it was dropping a little faster than it was supposed to. So as you can see now, it's sort of settled on this being the curve instead of this farther, this different slope. So are we going to get another large death number tomorrow? Probably not. I don't know how big it's going to be, but it's likely not going to be that big. But we'll see. You know, it's difficult to know, and obviously until it happens.
Joyce Hansen asks, why can't they update them to the day they were tested instead of the day the results come in? Joyce, they are. They put it in on the collection date. So it goes back to that date. Although it takes us a little time to get the numbers from the state, they are plugging that in on the actual collection.
Yeah, it's hard to I know it's difficult to understand, and I don't blame anybody for it, because if you look at COVID tracking, if you look at most news reports at a national level, they're going to be showing the reported numbers. This 148 is going to be that. What I just showed you is what the national numbers are going to show, simply because they do not have the resources to pick up the data for the Epi curves. We actually have dedicated staff that actually does this. They don't have that because they have to pick it up for 52 jurisdictions. So they pick it up, the reported numbers, and then compare state to state what's going on the reported numbers. We have the ability to look at them at the actual date of occurrence.
Yeah. And that, Garrett, is why local news matters, as we stress so much. So you could be our own promo right there. We are so lucky to have someone that is just dedicated to the data and just dedicated to these numbers and helping us better understand this. So we appreciate that they invest in you, if you will allow that term there. But we are so grateful to have you. Stephanie writes, what is the possible total positivity projection for the next couple of months. So Stephanie wrote a couple of questions a bit ago and asking about the projection. She was asking earlier about, can we look at things a couple months out? How do things look in that? And what's your favorite site for that right now?
That's a great question. I really like that question, Stephanie, and I would love to have an answer for you, but I'm not quite ready yet on the percent positive. I was actually planning on putting out some sort of at least basic forecast. It won't be a couple months out, but maybe a couple weeks out of where the percent positive appears to be heading. But I will get back to you on that particular number. However, even with that being said, I will pull up projection site. This, obviously everybody does like to at least look to see what the projections are going to be. I prefer a projection that's done with machine learning. I know I talk about this a lot. It's done by MIT. I like machine learning a lot better because there gives less ability to sort of change the parameters when it's done by machine learning. And so this is the one that and it also has been very accurate over time. So we'll go to this one. This is done by an MIT graduate student, and we can see right here, the projected death number and they only go out about till November 1st, and we can see the upper range, 8,285 deaths is the upper range, with the lower range being 553.86, and sort of settling in the median of 66.29. The R naught score is at a 0.9, but with a range, as you can see, the upper range is under 1 here as well, and then we talk about that a lot. And then the infections, you can see this thing believes that we are very much below the curve at this point, with only 20,000, anywhere from 6,000 to 20,000 people being infected by the virus on any given day. This isn't cases or tests. This is actually just community spread on this number. And then the currently infected, you can see it presumes that we have anywhere from 110,000 to 330,000 people in the state that are walking around that could transmit the virus. And that's, again, agnostic to the case and test numbers. And then the total infected so far, they're saying anywhere from 13% to 31% of the state has carried the virus at some point.
Garrett, first of all, Cheeto was just asking what the numbers look like in his area. And Cheeto, would you post what zip code you're in? And we'll pull up that specific zip code for you in just a second. I know he's concerned about downtown. In the meantime, as we wait for his response, Garrett, after we talked yesterday about this time, I said I was driving over here to the studio, and I was shocked when I pulled out of my neighborhood at how many people were out and about. It's been just packed out there. I was curious if the mobility has changed and how we can track that, sort of show people what's changed over time. I've, anecdotally just gauged it on how quickly I can pull out of my neighborhood there and how much traffic is coming. Obviously, again, it's all anecdotal, but it kind of reflects what we're seeing all over the valley. If you have to run out for errands, or you are back at work, or you're like us, you're an essential worker, you've been working the whole time and leaving your house, it's busy out there right now. Can we see that reflected in some sort of graph?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up really quick. I do have a graph for that, but I will also bring you to a site for that. Let me see. It's being, hold on one second.
That's okay. And Cheeto, I see you're asking, you sent me your zip code, so we'll do that in just a second. I've written it down. Hang with us just a bit.
I actually have to type something in order to make this work.
Oh, that's okay.
And then, it's still going to.
That's okay. Well, you're loading it. I'm going to let you know. That's okay. That's okay. We haven't heard just yet when the governor will be speaking, if it's going to be later this week or possibly tomorrow. Usually when we hear from him, it's on a Wednesday or Thursday. Of course, as soon as we hear he has plans to speak, we'll pass it along to all of you and let you know on all devices and places that you can then join in and watch. I know that his next news conference is going to be of great interest because I'm sure we'll hear more about schools once again. So that information will be shared to cover for you and let you know when we hear from the governor that he's planning to speak about that. Any luck, Garrett?
Yes, I'm ready. Sorry.
Yes,
I do have the data pull up. It's my chicken scratch graph, but we'll bring it up. This is basically, if you can see it, it might be a little difficult to see, but it's this is the social mobility by Descartes Labs. They take a bunch of cell phone data. It's anonymized entirely, and then just sort of check to see where it was in March as far as a baseline of movement of that data and where it is now. And you can see here's the massive drop that occurred at the shutdown, the increase to about 50% of regular movement that occurred when the state reopened. And then as we went through our sort of climbing period in July, you can see our mobility actually decreased by a pretty substantial amount. But sometime in late July, we started to pick back up. So there is indication that people are increasing their mobility. As of right now, that increase has not impacted the case numbers. However, as we talk about all the time, sometimes we have to wait 2 weeks to see things. It seems that right now this increase in mobility has not affected anything. But again, we just have to keep watching it to see what this number does.
Garrett, where is that high? There's like a jump in there. It looks like May 15th or maybe.
Yeah, this is May. This is about May 16th to about May 26th. This is just after the governor reopened the state, and that is what that jump is.
Yeah, you can see an incredible change reflected just in that. All right, Cheeto's written in the zip code. Thank you for writing that in. It helps us show everybody how to find their zip code. It's within the AZDHS site, and it's a simple click that'll take you right to that zip code map. And Garrett, the zip code provided is 85034. Could we look up those numbers specifically for Cheeto? And thanks for hanging with me.
Yes, I will look at that. I just have to get a point of reference for that. It's Phoenix Sky Harbor.
Down.
So let's go look down here. So we have I've got it shared, ready to go. And then here's our zip code map right now. As you can see, the top is greater than 1,000. That's for the gradient, but you can still go in and click on a specific zip code. This is the Phoenix Sky Harbor zip code, which would be right here, right? Let's see, 85034, right?
85034, that's correct.
There you go. So about 383. That is from my knowledge of the zip codes in the area, that's a very sparsely populated zip code. You can tell if you go down a little bit right here, 1520 right here, 848 right there. So, but as far as 85034 itself, about 383 people. I don't have the per capita number for this right now, but I'll have to do that in a second.
Will you pull up one more? Angela's asking about 85206, and then we'll move off the zip code map because I know everybody will put their zip codes in to look. It's such a simple thing to check out. And again, it's on the AZDHS site, and you can just click on that. Remember that, as Garrett sort of alluded to there, the size is different, the population, I should say, and size is different in every zip code. So to compare zip codes is not really a fair look. But if you're interested in your area, this is just a great snapshot, just one tool, just one number to sort of judge how things look.
Yes, so here it is, 1309 for 85206. You can see sort of zip codes north of the 60 freeway. They are in the red in some of these areas. You go a little farther south into Gilbert, they go under 1,000 for some cases. But yeah, there's your number right there.
Yeah, Angela, thanks for the question. So if anybody would like to look at that, that's where it is. And the dark red, Garrett, one other thing of note is over 1,000, right?
Yes, it's over 1,000 cases. But again, this is not a per capita map, as you pointed out. There are some zip codes that, there's some out here that like, let me see if I can. I mean, they don't have the tribal data is not on here, but there are some data like right here, Casa Grande, 1599. We know that this particular zip code. Just by like me doing work in this, I know that there's a congregate setting here. This is an ICE facility as well as a prison and detention center. So the majority of the cases that are coming from this 1599, this 85122, are likely coming from those congregate settings.
Yeah. Melissa posts about a friend's aunt who just passed away 2 days ago. And Melissa, first of all, I'm sorry for your friend's loss. And I just want to take a moment to pause, as we do each day, that while we talk about the data and we talk about the numbers, we absolutely realize that there are friends and family, sisters and brothers, neighbors, coworkers, and special people in our lives who we've lost to COVID. So we pause to remember them. And when we talk quickly about the data, it's only to help people better understand what's happening here. So please pass along our condolences to your friend who is really experiencing what 4,300 families now in Arizona are experiencing, and more than 165 families around the U.S. So there is a lot of hurt and sadness around what is happening, especially for those families who know keenly well how sad and devastating this is, you know. So thank you. Oh, Melissa says thank you. You're so welcome. Please pass that along from us. Okay, let's see. We're already in our last 10 minutes or so, and as I mentioned, the reason I'm at the station today is sort of a swapped shift. I'll be heading out to anchor our 4 o'clock newscast in a matter of, well, let's see, about 90 minutes or so here. So we'll have about 10 minutes left to answer a few more questions.
I did. Someone had an ask on where they can find mobility data. I'm going to send this over to producer Josh. While the Descartes Labs data is something that is difficult to find for Arizona without having to go through to a CSV file and kind of mesh it about, Google actually has a very simple website where you can go and look for mobility data. I'll share the screen really quick just so that you can look. And this is using obviously the Android platform. Apple does the same thing with the iPhones. And you can come over here. You can search by pretty much any country or any jurisdiction, and you can download a PDF that will then give you an idea of what the social mobility is like in that area.
Perfect. Thank you, Garrett. That's a great share there. And then that's the address right there on the bottom of the screen, google.com.
Yes, that is the address, absolutely.
Okay, Andy, hopefully you're able to grab that and take a closer look at some of those numbers as well. All right, anyone else joining us on this R naught number? I did not get a chance to peek at it this morning. We've been telling everybody on here that, you know, we were the first to have our full bar there below 1, and then our neighboring state, New Mexico, joined us over in that elusive spot. And it seemed like about half the states were in the green, half the states in the red. But is anybody else joining us in that under 1 category?
We do have a couple of, we have one friend today. New Mexico, yeah, Alaska's our friend today that joined us in the category. New Mexico, slightly above 1 today as far as their numbers are concerned. It's 1.01 is their range. So their number is 85. It's 0.85, but their range sort of went up just 1/10 of a point. Again, we've talked about how the error bars are very important. We determined that the confidence level that they have in this is about 80%, which is decent. But of course, you know, it leaves a lot of room for the estimate. And you can see us at 0.98, Alaska at 1. So that's as close as we got. Is they're on the line. But as of right now, if we're doing an under 1 assessment, then we're the only state right now that has an under 1.
And we've got more than half the states in the green, it looks like now. So that's news as we're trying to make progress to try to get this thing under control. Anastasia writes, Maine is doing so well. My brother and family live there, and they do require masks. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see what other states are doing and the choices that they're making to try to get this thing under control in different parts of the country. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's see, Garrett. Any other quick headlines? It looked like we were still 3rd as far as counties go. I was kind of looking at that map. Obviously, the same as zip codes, counties are not uniform in size and population, so it's just of interest to peek at, but not really something to judge us against all others, except that we can say we're the 4th most populous county here in Maricopa County across the country. We were in the 3rd spot. We jumped to the 2nd spot. Now we're back down in 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and I'm assuming you're using the New York Times data for that.
Yeah, actually, the one I've been checking recently is the Johns Hopkins.
Oh, the J issue. Okay.
Yeah, just because they have a really easy to read bar on the side when you pull it up by counties that I think is helpful for folks who are not necessarily on there every single.
Oh, yes. Okay.
You know, Miami-Dade was up there with us, and Cook County, obviously LA, but you know, it was. You can really see it reflected there, what we're seeing across the country. And when you were talking about the high number of deaths, Florida had reported a very high number of deaths yesterday. I think one of the highest that they've seen. So we're kind of seeing all that, you know, show up in different data points.
Yeah, and I shared the URL with producer Josh so he can put it up.
Perfect.
And what you were talking about, Miami-Dade right there, you know, 210,000 Los Angeles, Miami-Dade 135, Maricopa 126. Of course, if you did this per capita, which it's not per capita, Los Angeles at 210 would be much smaller than even Miami-Dade and Maricopa County. Of those 3, Miami-Dade would have the highest per capita rate by far. Yeah, that's sort of, this is pretty much, this has been, when we started tracking it, this particular map was pretty much the standard. This is where everybody went to track this. So essentially, this is in many ways sort of the oldest tracker we have for this data.
Lisa writes, love the info. You're helping to keep me informed. Lisa, thank you so much. That's why we jump on here each afternoon to try to help people understand the data as it comes out. It can be overwhelming. There's a lot of funky websites that are hard to find your way through. We just want to save you the time, get you to the info quickly. Hey, you know what, Garrett, you're highlighting this really interesting bar that I haven't looked at for a long time on there, but how it breaks down the demographics. I found that so interesting. Yes. and really, really helpful.
I'll have to share. I was just trying to open it up, and I'm going to have to share a different screen to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go onto this other screen. When you click on that, this is what appears. It appears in a different window. But yeah, this is for every single county. They have this sort of status report that shows what the fatality rate is. 2.22. That's the state. That's our case fatality rate right now. You can see the number of cases in the last 14 days. Here's the healthcare facts. Some census-based facts, some how many ICU beds we have. This really much says explore more. You can drill down pretty heavily on this data.
Yeah, I just found it fascinating. I was looking at it early on in this pandemic, and I just found it a fascinating little status report. COVID-19 alone, I just thought it was interesting to see different breakdowns and the most accurate numbers that they were pulling on race and age, and it's just a great way to get to know your community better. And I would encourage everybody, no matter where you are in the country or where you're from, to take a peek at that, because it's really got some fact-based, interesting information on that. And to find that, go into the counties on that John Hopkins page, and you'll be able to see that report. But you do have to click on it so that it pulls up a little bar. What you're opening, Garrett, is just that tiny box so that folks.
Yeah, the tiny box. I had to open it in a different window, so I had to share it differently. But if you can see it in the tiny bar and then click on it, it will just simply open a new window for you.
Really good stuff. Hey, I think that's where we need to start to wrap things up for the day. I want to let folks know where they can find us. Garrett is on Twitter, and I always encourage you to follow him there, because in the mornings, around 8:30 in the morning, he breaks down all the numbers, and it's really easy to digest. I always retweet it. So there's his Twitter account. It's at Garrett_Archer. And then mine is at Katie Raml. I just share those. I try to share them each morning. Garrett, you work Monday through Friday, but boy, you're there every single day for us on Twitter to keep us updated on that. So I really appreciate you putting those out. You can also find me on Facebook, since many of you are watching on Facebook right now. That's facebook.com/news from Katie. I appreciate the conversation continuing over there. And some of you are posting more questions that we are trying to get people answered on these conversations as well. So Anastasia writes, how's your little dinosaur? So that's my son. There's a video of him running and playing in the hallway dressed as a dinosaur. So he's good. He's very crazy right now. And you can probably hear him screaming in the background most days when we're doing these Facebook Lives. So we want to invite you for more information on coronavirus to find that at abc15.com/coronavirus. You'll find all of our reporting right there. You can look back at some of our past stories and other issues that we've highlighted there. Some people on here have asked for different storylines, and you can find all of our stories, all of our reporting over on abc15.com. And as always, we invite you to our newscasts. We've got one coming up at 4 o'clock that I'll be anchoring. We also have newscasts at 5, 6, and 10 p.m. So you can get the very latest information right there. And as always, stay safe out there, and we'll keep you updated tomorrow on all things coronavirus in Arizona. And it will be a very important day for you to join us, because we're hoping by the time, Garrett, you and I go on, we'll have those metrics sent out from the state once again to highlight where we are in the tracking and the metrics for schools, for bars and restaurants, for water parks, for gyms. We'll talk about it all right here with you tomorrow. So we hope you make time for us then.